not know his name the night I met him. I would not learn it for years. In October of 1992, I was 21 years old and living in Bethesda, Maryland. I worked part-time at a bookstore near Wisconsin Avenue and shared a basement apartment with another woman who was almost never home. I had routines then. I walked the same routes, shopped at the same stores, and ate at the same places around my neighborhood. The night I think about most began without any sense of danger. It was cool, one of those early autumn evenings where the air still felt warm. I had finished a closing shift and missed my usual bus. Rather than wait nearly 40 minutes for the next one, I started walking. The street was quiet, most places already closed for the night. That was why I noticed him. He was thin, pale, and dressed too neatly for someone lingering outside a closed restaurant. When I passed, he smiled and asked if I knew whether the place was still serving food. His voice was soft, and he seemed polite. I replied quickly, "No," and kept walking. He followed a few steps behind and apologized, then asked if I could point him toward another place nearby. I stopped, partly because I felt I had been too rude in my first response, and told him there was another place a few blocks down that might still be open. He thanked me and said he was new to the area, that he worked odd jobs and lived close by. He walked beside me while maintaining a safe distance and started making conversation by asking normal questions. He asked where I worked and whether I liked living in Bethesda. He listened intently and smiled and nodded along as I replied. I remember thinking that he seemed lonely more than threatening. When we reached my street, I told him this was where I lived and that I was heading home. He nodded and slowed, letting space open between us. I felt relieved, even a little embarrassed for having been cautious. Then he asked whether I had a phone he could use. This was before people carried phones with them. Most households still had a corded landline, and mine was no different. He said his sister was expecting a call and that he did not want to go around knocking on strangers' doors late at night. I hesitated before answering, already unsure, but said yes. That decision has replayed in my mind ever since. The apartment was quiet. My roommate was not home yet. I set my bag down and showed him towards the phone. He dialed and waited. No one answered. He hung up and tried again. Still nothing. He apologized and thanked me, then stood there without moving. I asked if there was anything else he needed. He smiled again, but this time I felt something different. His smile did not reach his eyes. He asked if he could use the bathroom before he left. I told him where it was. A few minutes passed. I called out, asking if everything was okay. He did not answer. When he came back into the living room, he seemed like a different person altogether. His posture was different. His voice was quieter and not polite anymore. He asked if my roommate would be home soon. I lied and said yes. He stepped closer to me and reached out as if to touch my arm, then stopped himself. I could see his hand was shaking. I remember thinking that I needed to leave and get away from him. I told him I had forgotten to pick up my post and needed to step outside for a moment. But he saw through that. As I moved toward the door, he stepped forward toward the door, blocking me off. Without raising his voice, he said he did not like being lied to. I remember how close he was standing. I could not reach the door without touching him. His hand moved toward his jacket. I caught the glint of something metallic at his side. When I looked again, I realized in horror it was a switchblade. He took another step. I screamed, not because I thought it would help, but because I did not know what else to do. He reached for me. I felt his hand catch my sleeve and tear the fabric. as hard as I could and twisted free, then ran. I ran down the hall and out of the building. I did not stop until I reached a neighbor's porch and pounded on the door. When they answered, I told them there was a man in my apartment and that I needed help. They called the police and gave me a glass of water. My hands were shaking as I held it. By the time officers arrived, he was gone. The police searched the area and took my statement. I described him as best I could. Thin, pale, dark hair, quiet voice. They wrote everything down and told me they would follow up if they found anything. I did not sleep that night. The next few days were a blur. I stopped walking at night. I waited for the bus, even when it meant standing there longer than I wanted to. I checked the locks before bed, then again after turning off the lights. I started checking the windows too. I went to work, but I was not really there. I kept looking up from the register, certain someone was standing just outside the door. More than once, I thought I saw him on the street. Each time, I told myself it could not be him, but the feeling did not leave. After 2 weeks, I decided it was enough. I packed my things and moved out of that apartment. It was December when my old roommate called me one morning and asked if I had seen the paper. Later that day, I bought a copy myself. A young woman named Laura Houtling had been found murdered in Bethesda. I read the article sitting at my kitchen table. The location was close to where I stayed and Laura's age was close to mine. There was enough there that my hands started shaking before I finished reading. The article mentioned a man seen in the area, acting oddly, asking questions. I folded the paper and told myself not to make connections where none existed. Years passed, and I had moved to Virginia, living a new life and keeping the incident buried. Then, in the late 90s, I came across another article. A man had been convicted of murder and linked to multiple crimes in Maryland. His name was Hadden Clark. It was his photograph that stopped me cold. It was him. Older, thinner, but unmistakable. The same eyes and that same careful expression. I read everything I could. About his history, about his mental illness, about the people he had killed, about the people he might have killed, about the cannibalism, about how he blended in, how he gained trust, how he entered homes quietly. I learned that he had been active in the area during the exact time I had met him. I sat at my kitchen table and cried until I could not breathe. The knowledge did not bring relief. It brought weight and more questions. How close had I come to becoming a name in someone else's article? I replay the moment of my escape every time in my mind. I think about how easily it happened. A missed bus, a polite question, a door opened out of courtesy to a total stranger. Some nights I wake up shaking and sweating. In those dreams, the switchblade does not catch my sleeve. It catches my hand, and I don't escape. I tell myself that I escaped someone who did not let many people go. But it does not bring peace. Knowing that I survived a serial killer does not make the memory lighter. That knowledge does not fade or soften with time. It is a weight on my mind that never rests. This video was made in collaboration with Mystery and Madness, where they go into detail about the cross-dressing cannibal and how he was caught. If you're ready to uncover the truth hiding in the shadows, click the link in the description to join the investigation.